Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. An active shooter situation unfolded at a Michigan high school this afternoon. Police believe at least 15 shots were fired, with several injured and at least 3 dead. The first witnesses took the stand today in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. Jeffrey Epstein's private pilot and one alleged victim both gave testimonies. Famous physician Dr. Oz announces he's running for the U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. Oz criticizes the political response to the pandemic and says that's what's motivated him to run. Former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows will appear before the January 6th House Committee, according to the chairman's statement today. New York's Attorney General makes public text messages from CNN host Chris Cuomo. They raise questions about his involvement in former Governor Andrew Cuomo's sex scandal. At least 3 people killed and 8 others injured after a school shooting in Michigan. The fatal incident happened around noon today, and the shooter's motive is yet unknown. NTD's Shen Yun has what we know.
The 3 people killed at Oxford High School have been identified as students, according to the Oakland County Undersheriff, and one of those shot is believed to be a teacher. Of the 8 people injured, 2 are currently in surgery. The other 6 are in stable condition. The suspect, a 15-year-old sophomore student at the high school, has been taken into custody. He has not yet declared a motive, but has requested a lawyer. There was no resistance during the arrest, and the suspect invoked his right to remain silent. Police have yet to release the name of the suspect. Authorities recovered a handgun as well as multiple shell casings in the school. They estimate around 15 to 20 shots were fired. Police received the first call at 12:51 p.m. about an active shooter at Oxford High School, saying more than 100 911 calls followed during the incident. All evacuated students were relocated to a nearby store to reunite with relatives. Chenny Wu, NTD News.
And President Joe Biden offers his condolences to the Michigan community after the devastating school shooting. He said his heart goes out to the families enduring the grief of losing a loved one. And the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell continues. She's the former girlfriend and longtime associate of convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Today, Epstein's private pilot of almost 30 years took the stand, and one alleged victim gave her testimony. NTD's Jason Perry was in the courtroom.
Larry Vasosky took the stand today. He was Jeffrey Epstein's private pilot since 1991, and he was also a helicopter pilot, and he would frequently fly Epstein and others to Epstein Island in the Virgin Islands. Now, he said he kept a complete passenger manifest log of all the flights, and when he was asked about high-profile people who were on the flights, he mentioned names such as Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, and he also mentioned actors such as Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker. He went on to say that he never saw any women who appeared to be under 20 years old on any of the flights without a parent or legal guardian. He also said that he had no knowledge of any sexual abuse. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell is also a helicopter pilot, and she would fly Epstein and others to Epstein Island. And the first alleged sexual abuse victim took the stand today. She used a pseudonym as Jane and wanted to remain anonymous. She said she first met Maxwell and Epstein when she was attending an art camp in Michigan. Now, she was surprised to find out that Maxwell and Epstein resided in Palm Beach, Florida, where she was also residing at the time. She went on to say that Epstein would praise her and said she had potential, and he offered to pay for her education, and he would often give her money when she visited his mansion. She went on to say that Epstein began sexually abusing her at the age of 14, and Maxwell was often in the same room during the abuse. And she started crying on the stand when she was telling this story. Now, there are 3 other alleged sexual victims that are expected to testify. Jason Perry, NTD News, New York.
Twitter has made a major update to its private information policy. This just one day after Jack Dorsey stepped down as CEO. The new policy targets the sharing of photos and videos of private citizens without their consent. NTD's Grace Coulter has the details.
Twitter announced Tuesday that it will now remove private photos and videos if they're posted without the person's consent. This is an expansion of an existing policy that prohibits personal information, such as cell phone numbers, from being posted on the platform without the individual's permission. In a blog post, Twitter explained that the update is part of their ongoing work to align their safety policies with human rights standards. As for how the policy will be enforced, Twitter says they will review and remove the content upon being notified by those depicted in the images. The new policy does have several exceptions. It doesn't apply to public figures, or in cases where the media is shared in the public interest, or to add value to public discourse. Twitter said there may be other cases in which they allow private media to be shared, such as to help with a crisis situation, or as part of a newsworthy event due to public interest value. The company says it will take into consideration whether the content is being covered by the news media when deciding whether to remove it. The new policy comes just one day after Jack Dorsey resigned as CEO of Twitter. Chief Technology Officer Parag Agrawal has been appointed to take over as head of the company. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Mark Meadows, former President Trump's White House Chief of Staff, has agreed to cooperate with a House panel investigating the January 6th Capitol breach. The committee's chairman made the announcement today. Congressman Benny Thompson said in a statement that Meadows has produced records and will soon appear for an initial deposition, but the panel will continue to assess his degree of compliance. The agreement comes after 2 months of negotiations between Meadows and the committee. Meadows' lawyer said this cooperation would not require Meadows to waive executive privilege, nor forfeit the long-standing position that senior White House aides cannot be compelled to testify before Congress. And the Supreme Court will begin hearing oral arguments tomorrow challenging Roe v. Wade. The case involves a Mississippi law that bans most abortions after 15 weeks. A college professor tells NTD what makes this lawsuit so significant.
Mississippi passed a law in 2018 banning most abortions after 15 weeks. A U.S. district judge immediately struck down the law, calling it unconstitutional. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals later upheld the ruling. Now Mississippi is appealing the case to the Supreme Court. Adam Carrington, a political science professor at Hillsdale College, says this is the biggest abortion case in a generation.
It's the first time since 1992 that the court has accepted a challenge to Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, the main opinions that define abortion rights in the United States. Since then, since 1992, basically all the cases have worked within that framework. This is the first time where it seems like the court seems open to scaling back significantly or even overturning those cases again in a generation.
Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Fitch asked the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade, writing that the conclusion that abortion is a constitutional right has no basis in text, structure, history, or tradition. Carrington explains what will happen if Roe v. Wade were to be overturned.
I actually would expect states, depending upon their leanings, to go both ways. A lot of states would pass laws that greatly restrict abortion and protect the unborn in a way that they couldn't before. And then I think you're going to see some states follow New York and California's lead and codify greater protections for abortions late in pregnancy as well. You're really going to see a sorting of red and blue states on this.
The Center for Reproductive Rights is representing the Jackson Women's Health Organization, which is the last abortion clinic in Mississippi, in this lawsuit. They argue that the law defies decades of Supreme Court precedent.
I think that there is a majority of the court that would not have decided Roe the way it was originally decided, and therefore 5 that would like to see it overturned. I think you need to look at judges like Kavanaugh and Roberts and maybe Barrett, but especially Kavanaugh and Roberts, and ask how dedicated are they to precedent, and are they willing to go with what they thought was originally the right decision over what has become the settled decision of the last 50 years.
The Supreme Court is also looking at a separate law in Texas that bans most abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected. Carrington says if the Supreme Court were to uphold Roe v. Wade, it's unlikely that they'll take on another challenge to it in the near future.
This is hard to overestimate. This is truly a big, momentous decision, and a lot of the future of abortion debate, the pro-life movement, and everything that is attached to that is going to be hinging on what these justices do in this case.
Decisions on the two cases are not expected until well next year. Allison Lee, NTD News.
Mehmet Oz, best known as Dr. Oz, announced today that he's running for the U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. The cardiac surgeon and TV personality who's running as a Republican shared the news in this campaign video.
COVID has shown us that our system is broken. We lost too many lives, too many jobs, and too many opportunities because Washington got it wrong. They took away our freedom without making us safer, and tried to kill our spirit and our dignity. Now, as a heart surgeon, I know how precious life is.
Oz says this is why he's running for Senate. He added that, quote, Pennsylvania needs a conservative who will put America first, one that can reignite our divine spark, bravely fight for freedom, and tell it like it is. The 61-year-old Oz is hoping to succeed retiring Republican Senator Pat Toomey. The race for Toomey's seat has several prominent Republican candidates and potential contenders as well. And Democrats right now have control of the White House and both chambers of Congress, but their majorities in Capitol Hill are thin. And Republicans are anxiously gearing up their campaigns to flip the House red. Only a few seats are needed to give the GOP a majority. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
Today, Republican House Conference Chairwoman Elise Stefanik endorsed a handful of Republican candidates for Congress, all women who are running for office in 2022, and they're all hopeful and confident that they'll flip the House back red come next year.
Why am I optimistic? Because Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi's agenda has failed America. We are seeing crisis after crisis.
With the illegal border crisis, they are finding small abandoned children on their ranch lands that the coyotes are leaving and just abandoning these people.
While inflation, immigration, mandates, and critical race theory are areas of crisis, according to Republicans, most Democrats on the Hill stand by Biden's leadership. And with seemingly polar opposite points of view, how can these parties come together? Here's some of these new candidates' ideas for reaching across the aisle.
Healthcare, especially, Republicans get beat up a lot for not being supportive of healthcare. But I am a big believer. I want people to have healthcare, especially primary preventative care, so we can prevent healthcare costs in the future. So it really motivates me just to want to be a part of that solution to balance that power, because I think that's the best way to govern.
What's your message to the American people who are really looking at Washington, D.C. like, oh gosh, nothing gets done there. There's so much partisanship. What would you say to those people who are worried about this?
I would agree with them, and that's one of the reasons I'm running, because I'm tired of it. I always say, you want something done right, you do it yourself, and that's why I'm running for Congress, because I don't like it either. I agree with them.
And one area that has potential for bipartisanship in Congress is standing up to the Chinese Communist Party's human rights abuses.
It's horrifying to me, and it's scary that it's happening in front of us, and a lot of people aren't saying anything.
With Confucius Institutes, we have one at the University of New Hampshire in my district, and they are censoring and silencing our voices on social media and via big tech. So these are all issues, again, that my generation doesn't realize. That's why they're all on TikTok, which is Chinese spyware, right? These are issues we need to relay to young people, or we're going to lose our country if we don't.
Congresswoman Elise Stefanik tells us if Republicans take back the House next year, holding China accountable for mishandling the virus and its human rights abuses will be an area of focus.
Republicans, I think, need to lead the way, and we will lead the way in standing for human rights. I believe that countering China is the most important issue that my generation is going to face.
These candidates have a year to kick off their campaigns for the House. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Charged with a misdemeanor sex crime, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is set to appear in court in January. But now the spotlight is shifting to his brother Chris and his role in the scandal. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story.
In August, CNN anchor Chris Cuomo said he kept his distance from his brother's scandal. At that time, multiple women had accused New York Governor Andrew Cuomo of sexual misconduct.
I'm not an advisor. I'm a brother. I wasn't in control of anything. I was there to listen and offer my take. I never attacked nor encouraged anyone to attack any woman who came forward. I never made calls to the press about my brother's situation. I never influenced.
But texts made public by New York's Attorney General called Chris's statements into question. Conversations between Chris and former Governor top aide Melissa DeRosa show that the CNN host did contact the press about his brother's situation. On March 7th, Melissa said, "Hey, rumor going around from Politico, 1 to 2 more people coming out tomorrow. Can you check your sources?" Chris responds, "On it." During his testimony to investigators, Chris said, "When asked, I would reach out to sources, other journalists, to see if they had heard of anybody else coming out." CNN responded to the newly published documents, saying they deserve a thorough review and consideration, and that they'll look into the matter. Some of the anchor's critics, such as Meghan McCain, suggest Chris should be fired because of what he did. Andrew, the former governor, is set to attend court in January, charged with forcible touching, a misdemeanor. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
In the ongoing Theranos fraud trial, former Theranos CEO Elizabeth Holmes made allegations in court that she was raped by her former boyfriend and Theranos COO, Sunny Balwani. NTD's Jason Blair has more.
On Monday, Elizabeth Holmes took to the witness stand again in her defense, informing the court that she was raped by her former boyfriend and COO of Theranos, Sunny Balwani. Holmes, the former CEO of Theranos, is facing 11 accounts of fraud along with Balwani. These charges are in regards to Theranos' blood testing laboratories making false claims of breakthroughs in blood testing technology and cheating millions from investors, doctors, and customers. Holmes has pleaded innocent, claiming ignorance, and accuses her colleagues of the questionable actions. The defense painted Balwani as being coercive and critical. Holmes was emotional during the testimony and accused Balwani of repeatedly raping her during their 11-year relationship. She said she was struggling to cope and suppress the pain by putting all of her time into building Theranos. The trial has been going on since August 31st. Holmes faces up to 20 years in prison if found guilty. She is expected to face cross-examination this week. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Coming up, the nation's first drug injection sites opened in New York City today. The centers aim to reduce the risk of overdose deaths and disease transmission. Suspects arrested for a smash-and-grab robbery at a California mall are released. The Sheriff's Department is investigating why. That and more on NTD News. Here's an update on that COVID-19 antiviral pill by Merck. The FDA panel has endorsed the antiviral drug, but now the vote was a narrow one, 13-10. Ultimately, the panel found that the benefits outweigh its risks, which include potential birth defects if used during pregnancy. Now the vote was just a recommendation. The FDA is expected to make its final decision before the end of the year. And the United States is seeing more and more drug overdose deaths. 2020 was the deadliest year so far. New York City wants to stop that with safe injection sites for drug users. NTD's Arian Pazdar went to one of the sites.
New York City opened the nation's first supervised injection sites. This is one of the 2 sites. Now, besides being allowed to inject drugs, users will also be provided with clean syringes and be supervised by trained staff. The city's health commissioner said every 4 hours someone dies of a drug overdose in New York City. According to the mayor, these centers can help bring that number down. A user at the site agrees with the mayor, saying it provides a safe environment for addicts.
They're shooting up or smoking or sniffing, whatever it is, in a safe place where no one will get hurt physically, mentally, emotionally, and they can get saved if they have an overdose.
But critics say these sites might be an incentive for addicts to use more drugs. And they might bring more drug users to the area, which can lead to an increase in crime. So how do local residents feel about the new center?
I don't think it would be that big a deal. Not around here. Well, if they're under supervision and it's for their benefit, definitely. You understand? But if it's gonna harm anyone, then it's a big no.
I don't think it's gonna help the neighborhood. It's not helping the people as much as they would imagine. The focus should be on the prevention of drug use, I guess. So helping them to get off of the addiction.
The mayor says he's proud to show cities across the U.S. how New York is approaching the opioid crisis. Ariane Pastar, NTD News, New York.
2 suspects arrested for participating in a smash-and-grab robbery are released. A California county is investigating why. NTD's Eileen Ang has more.
The Contra Costa County Sheriff Department in California is investigating why 2 suspects involved in the Walnut Creek Nordstrom robbery were released. 3 suspects were arrested during the smash-and-grab involving 90 people. According to ABC 7 News, 1 pleaded not guilty and is still in custody after a court hearing on Monday. The other 2 have already been released. When the reporter called one of the suspects' mother about another court appearance on Tuesday, she said he did not know about it and that he was accidentally released from jail. According to the Contra Costa County District Attorney on November 24th, they face felony charges of conspiracy, burglary, robbery, and organized retail theft. The district attorney told us to direct all questions to the Sheriff's Department, which did not respond by deadline. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
Northern California saw a series of looting events and robberies this month. In the Bay Area, both the Oakland mayor and police chief responded to the uptick in crime. We hear more from NTD's David Lamb.
According to the Oakland Police Department in California, it has investigated 127 homicides this year compared to 104 this time last year. Police insist the addition of tactical teams played a significant role in reducing crime over the holiday weekend.
A tactical response is what I deploy. Essentially, what I did was divide up our tactical team to put out specially trained officers throughout the city and 4 different quadrants in the city.
In a press conference on Tuesday morning, Armstrong said they currently have 676 officers in the department.
That is the smallest staff that we've had in several years.
On Monday, Oakland mayor said she'll push to reverse the planned cuts to the police department set to take effect next year.
We must address police staffing shortages, and that is what we will do.
Schaaf said they plan to send a revised hiring plan to City Council to budget for more officers amid a spike in violence and homicides. Patrol officers are responding to armed caravans, illegal sideshows, and other violent crimes. The police chief says perpetrators are using social media to coordinate and that people should report burglaries, even auto burglaries, so police can immediately respond.
Because what we've seen over and over again is a trend of a group of individuals that sometimes are not even from Oakland come and commit multiple burglaries, as high as 30 burglaries in one particular hour period, going from car to car, breaking into cars.
Armstrong said they're expecting to have 26 new graduates deploy for patrol in December. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
SpaceX is currently developing its next rocket, Starship, in Texas. But it seems things are not going well. Elon Musk warned that the company could face a genuine risk of bankruptcy if it fails to solve a rocket engine problem. NTD's Colin Fredrickson has the details.
This area is used for the engine components. So
SpaceX founder and CEO Elon Musk is reportedly concerned about a lack of progress on the company's next rocket engine. Tech blog Space Explored published part of a company-wide email where Musk mentioned its rocket, Starship's Raptor production crisis, is much worse than it had seemed a few weeks ago. The email mentioned the recent leadership shakeup. CNBC reports that 2 vice presidents have parted with the company, citing sources. One is reportedly Vice President of Propulsion Will Heltsley. Another is Vice President of Mission and Launch Operations Lee Rosen. According to CNBC, the main reason they quit is a lack of progress on Raptor engine development. In the email, Musk said, "We face a genuine risk of bankruptcy if we can't achieve a Starship flight rate of at least once every 2 weeks next year."
3, 2, 1, ignition.
Starship plays a key role in SpaceX's future missions. Earlier this month, Musk said that SpaceX will hopefully launch the first Starship orbital flight in January or February. But the rocket prototypes will need about 39 Raptor engines each. That means SpaceX will have to resolve its engine issues before Starship can take anyone anywhere. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
With millions of people shopping online this week, security experts are reminding you to keep your guard up. Scammers and hackers are also browsing online, with some possibly using the ongoing supply chain issues to their advantage to try to steal money and private information. Here are 3 things you should do to avoid becoming a victim.
Beware before you click buy. With a record number of people continuing their online holiday shopping this week, experts say stay alert.
We get international scammers that are tapping into the U.S. market by looking for products that they know are in high demand and pretending to offer those just to get people's credit card information.
According to a survey from the National Retail Federation, 62.8 million people were expected to shop on Cyber Monday alone. That massive online demand, along with the ongoing supply chain crisis, has some shoppers concerned about availability. An online security expert, Douglas Parisi, says that desperation may leave holiday shoppers vulnerable against scammers and hackers.
The major carriers don't have the products, and so people start to look to third-party vendors, people that claim that they have several of these, and that should be a red flag. Is if somebody has something available that is very difficult to find. If they're not charging an exorbitant price, they're probably just scamming you.
Here's what he recommends you keep in mind to protect your money and personal data while you shop online. Number 1, shop only from trustworthy retailers with secure websites. 2, set up a separate email for online shopping only. And finally, use a credit card instead of a debit card for increased protection against any shady charges.
Talk about taking love to new heights. A couple from Melbourne, Australia got engaged 1,200 feet above the streets of New York City. Check out this breathtaking view of the Big Apple. It's a view this couple will never forget, for lots of reasons. A man named Shane proposed to his partner Tanya during City Climb, an aerial skyscraping adventure in New York. Looks like she said yes. The others on the adventure erupted in applause for the happy couple. They climbed above Edge, which is the highest outdoor sky deck in the Western Hemisphere. Once they got to the 100th floor of the building, they had a chance to enjoy the 360 views of 30 Hudson Yards and enjoy a champagne toast in the sky. And Adele is headed to Las Vegas for the new year. The British superstar announced her Las Vegas concert residency at the Coliseum of Caesars Palace Hotel. Adele will perform 2 concerts each weekend from January 21st through April 16th. Pre-sale tickets for Weekends with Adele are available only through registration, which starts Tuesday. The small venue has just 4,100 seats and has been a residency home to a few performers you may have heard of, like Celine Dion, Elton John, Cher, and Mariah Carey. Last week, Adele debuted her 4th studio album, 30. It debuted at #1 on Billboard and is already the U.S.'s top-selling album of 2021. And coming up, a California sheriff announces his department will not be working with a COVID-19 testing provider because of its connections to the Chinese regime. And at least 7 countries are quietly helping Taiwan's submarine project, even though they run the risk of angering Beijing. More on that when we return on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
A sheriff in Los Angeles declared they will not be working with a COVID-19 testing provider due to connections with China. Here's NTD's Eileen Ang with more details.
Unequivocally condemned.
Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva said their department will not be working with a genetics firm for COVID-19 testing due to its links to China. In a letter to the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors on Monday, Villanueva said the FBI informed him that Fulgent Genetics had strong ties to the Chinese Academy of Medical Sciences, which is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. He wrote, "I was even more shocked to learn Fulgent made no attempt to disguise the fact they will use the genetic information obtained in future studies." According to Fulgent's website, they may disclose de-identified patient information for general research purposes with third parties like universities, hospitals, other laboratories, and commercial collaborations with private companies. Villanueva said the department will continue using their current system and will not associate themselves to Fulgent. In a statement to Fox LA, the LA County Supervisor said the county's contract with Fulgent prohibits disclosure of info without county's permission, but will take immediate action if there's a credible threat. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
At least 7 countries are secretly supporting Taiwan's military project, according to a report. And the French National Assembly is backing Taiwan with a new resolution it passed on Monday. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
Faced with increasing aggression from Beijing, friends of Taiwan are quietly stepping up to help. This, according to a Reuters report. Details say at least 7 nations are pitching in to aid Taiwan in building a submarine fleet. The U.S. and U.K. reportedly provided key technology, while experts from Australia, Canada, India, Spain, and South Korea will lend a hand. Once complete, the fleet will become part of the island's deterrence effort against possible invasions. The island has tried to purchase modern submarines in the past, but couldn't find a seller, with other nations fearful of angering Beijing. Taiwan's defense ministry called the new submarines crucial for national defense, while China's foreign ministry accused the assisting countries of, quote, playing with fire. Beijing used the same rhetoric when Chinese Communist Party head Xi Jinping met with U.S. President Biden virtually earlier this month. There, Xi Jinping warned Biden not to support Taiwan. China operates nearly 60 submarines, and Taiwan's Navy deploys just 4. The French National Assembly is backing Taiwan with a new resolution it passed on Monday. The pro-Taiwan resolution calls for the island's inclusion in international organizations. Taiwan thanked France for the gesture. The island's foreign ministry praised the resolution as historic. It says Taiwan and France have a long-standing relationship based on democracy, freedom, and human rights. The resolution supports Taiwan's participation in agencies such as the International Civil Aviation Organization, Interpol, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the World Health Assembly. China claims Taiwan as its own territory. It rejects any attempts by the self-ruled island to participate in international organizations. French lawmakers promoted the resolution's passage on Twitter, but Beijing voiced strong opposition, claiming it conforms to U.S. pressure and that it won't have a real impact. The French Senate passed a similar resolution in May.
The chief of Britain's Secret Intelligence Service gave his first public speech today. Richard Moore, speaking at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, said it's unusual for heads of MI6 to give public speeches and be open, but that it's something he wants to change. Firstly, to better integrate within the democracy, and secondly, to adapt to the changing nature of the threats faced by modern intelligence agencies. NTD's Malcolm Hudson has more on this.
In his first public speech since taking up the post,
MI6 chief Richard Moore detailed his key priorities for the agency. The biggest one, he said, is China.
Adapting to a world affected by the rise of China is the single greatest priority for MI6. The Chinese Communist Party leadership increasingly favor bold and decisive action, justified on national security grounds. The days of Deng Xiaoping's hide your strength, bide your time are long over.
Moore said he sees areas of cooperation with Beijing, such as trade, but he stressed that China, as an authoritarian state, has different values from us.
Beijing has seriously eroded Hong Kong's one country, two systems framework and removed individual rights and freedoms in the name of national security. Its surveillance state has targeted the Uyghur population in Xinjiang, carrying out widespread human rights abuses, including the arbitrary detention of an estimated 1 million Muslims.
Moore noted that the Chinese regime has exported made-in-China surveillance technology to other governments. This, he said, serves to expand its web of authoritarian control worldwide. In his speech, Moore warned of large-scale espionage operations against Britain and its allies. He said that Chinese spies exploit the open nature of our societies, including through social media operations, to distort public discourse and influence political decision-making. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
The world's newest republic is born. The Caribbean island nation Barbados is declaring itself an independent republic, ending nearly 400 years of British rule.
Fireworks fill the sky as Barbados officially swears in Sandra Mason as its first ever president. The island is home to over 300,000 people.
We now turn our vessel's bow towards the new republic.
While the island will remain a member of the Commonwealth, this is the first time in almost 3 decades that a realm has removed Queen Elizabeth as head of state. Despite the official celebration, British Member of Parliament Tom Tugendhat has accused China of playing a large role in Barbados' decision. He said Beijing is using investments to gain leverage and undermine the UK's status as a key partner with Caribbean nations. In recent years, Barbados has reportedly embraced more than $600 million in funding from China for projects as part of Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative.
Coming up, the UK is responding to the Omicron variant by offering the booster shot to all adults. That's despite the CEO of Moderna saying current vaccines may be less effective against Omicron. And the La Palma volcano continues to erupt for the 72nd straight day. Authorities are monitoring the air quality, saying the concentration of toxic gas in the air is high. Find out more in just a moment here on NTD News. The British Prime Minister says that all adults are to be offered the booster shot by the end of January, with temporary vaccination hubs popping up like Christmas trees around the country. This as restrictions came back into force this morning, with masks required on public transport and in shops. International arrivals now need a negative PCR test to leave isolation. But the CEO of vaccine maker Moderna said today current vaccines may be less effective against Omicron. NTD's Joanne Robson brings us the latest.
The Prime Minister says the NHS and the Army can rise to the challenge of accelerating booster jabs to all adults, and that the UK will throw everything at the expanded rollout in response to the Omicron variant.
What we need to do is delay the seeding of Omicron in this country. That's why tough checks at the borders are so important. But we don't see any need at present, certainly, to change the overall guidance about how people should be living their lives.
Masks became mandatory again from 4 a.m. Tuesday morning on public transport and in shops. International arrivals to the UK will have to take a PCR test and isolate until they receive a negative result. Hours after the restrictions came into force, a health minister admitted it had been difficult for the government to get the balance right.
Rather overreact than underreact at this point. I think we've been here so many times that, we've got this fantastic wall of vaccine now. We want to keep that. We want to strengthen it.
The number of Omicron cases in the UK had reached 22 by Tuesday afternoon, with 42 cases confirmed in the EU. The CEO of vaccine maker Moderna sent financial markets tumbling, saying existing vaccines will be less effective against the new variant. But the PM played down the severity of the warning.
I think what Stéphane Bancel was saying is probably right, but you need to look at what he's not necessarily saying that this will mean that the vaccines are ineffective against serious illness or death.
The Health Security Agency said there is no sign of an Omicron surge in Britain because there is no increase in S gene target failure in PCR tests, which is a feature of the new variant. The Health Secretary explained this measure while visiting St Thomas Hospital Monday night.
You're right, sequencing does take time, but the good thing is that we've got a good way, a proxy, to try and identify this new variant. The scientists call it the S gene dropout, and what it really means is that from a regular PCR test, that for most labs they can very quickly determine if it's very, very likely to be the new variant.
Commuters in central London said it was right to be cautious until more is known about the new variant.
And obviously everyone wants to be able to travel, meet family and things like that, but ultimately there needs to be some caution, right, until we see the full extent of what's ahead of us. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I was very surprised actually when the mask wearing on public transport was lifted. I thought it should have remained all the time.
I thought there were going to be more people on the train this morning who were wearing masks, but there wasn't that many, so I guess people aren't taking it as seriously as last time, but we'll see.
The World Health Organization said it could take weeks to understand whether Omicron is likely to cause severe illness or escape protection by vaccines. Joanne Robson, NTD News.
The UK competition watchdog has ordered Facebook owner Meta to sell Giphy, the animated images platform. It's Britain's first such move against big tech in its efforts to regulate the sector. The regulator said it found last year's acquisition of Giphy would reduce competition between social media platforms and in-display advertising. It said its decision protects millions of social media users and promotes competition. Last year, Facebook bought Giphy for a reported $400 million. The company seeks to integrate the animated image-making power of Giphy with its Instagram photo-sharing app. Meta said it may appeal the decision. It has 4 weeks to decide. And in other news, Hungary is hit hard by rising food and fuel prices. Many people are having to tighten their belts. Local businesses report losing customers to multinational supermarkets, which can maintain cheaper prices. And the government has set a fuel price cap as it faces a challenge in next year's election. This report comes from NTD's Lily Joe.
Rising inflation is leading to price increases for food, fuel and other products in Hungary. Many people are having to choose between digging deeper into their pockets or tightening their belts.
Everything got more expensive. I can buy food, but obviously less of it.
Nearly 2 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic impact of the crisis is still being felt. Hungary and other Central and Eastern European countries have some of the highest inflation rates in the EU. A butcher at this Budapest food market says she's seen a drop in business as customers head to multinational grocery chains that can offer discounts by buying in large wholesale quantities.
Buyers are price sensitive though, and therefore often leave us behind, even if our products are high quality. Money talks. We notice that inflation is not good for us. We have to live with this situation.
Hungary's currency, the forint, has lost around 16% of its value against the dollar in the last 6 months and slipped to a historic low against the euro last week. According to investment manager Zsolt Balasi, keeping the exchange rate of the forint low is part of a strategy by Hungary's central bank to keep the country competitive and attract foreign companies seeking cheap labor. But prices of imports and fuel have soared.
Years ago, the a barrel of oil was $140, it was $120, now it's only $80, yet Hungarian fuel prices are at all-time high. They are 500 forints above, because of the weakening of the currency.
Earlier this month, diesel prices peaked at nearly 120 pence per litre. Hungary's government announced a 111 pence cap at petrol stations in response.
Az üzemanyagárak olyan mértékben nőttek meg,
Fuel prices have risen so much that the government has had to take action. And we have decided to cap both petrol and diesel prices at a certain level at 480 forints.
Hungary will have an election next May. The right-wing governing party faces its most serious challenge since it was elected in 2010. Balassi believes this influenced the government's decision to cap prices. Lily Zhou, NTD News.
And in France, a hospital noted a huge surge of mental illnesses among teenagers over the past 3 months. One psychiatrist says the situation could be caused by long-lasting pandemic measures. NTD's David Vives has the story.
According to a November 26th report by French outlet Le Monde, the number of children suffering from mental illnesses are skyrocketing. Since September, a child under the age of 15 has been arriving at the Robert Debré Children's Hospital almost every day for a suicide attempt, versus 1 every 3 days 2 years ago. Pandemic restrictions are the top cause for this surge, the report says. Psychiatrist Mila Alekovic agrees with that assessment.
There's silence on the mental health issues caused not by the virus itself, but by the management of the crisis.
She says different measures contribute to the increase of mental disorders with teens and children. The wearing of masks, being forced to stay at home, or even measures such as being told not to speak.
We know, for example, that when someone is told not to speak or is told not to do so for a long time, there can be cognitive regression because people are deprived of expressing their emotions. They can be driven toward psychosis, toward madness.
According to a study released in medical journal The Lancet on October 8th, the rate of mental disorders and anxiety has increased worldwide and should not be ignored. Alekovic also says the media's narrative on COVID-19 is also spreading fear and guilt.
I see patients living with anxiety, saying they're afraid of contaminate their relatives. I tell them they're going to be all right and stop watching the news, and that actually helped to relieve their anxiety.
France may be hit by new restrictive measures soon. The country has registered about 47,000 new confirmed cases over the past 24 hours. According to French Health Minister Olivier Véran, that's the highest one-day tally since April 8th at the height of the third wave of the pandemic. David Vives, NTD News.
And today, Spain's military emergency unit is monitoring the air quality around the La Palma volcano as it continues to erupt for the 72nd straight day. The volcano is located in Spain's Canary Islands off the northwestern coast of Africa. Reports say a new vent opened in the volcano overnight, triggering a new lava stream and sending huge clouds of smoke into the sky. Authorities say the concentration of toxic gas in the air is high as lava flowing from the volcano destroys more homes. The lava has engulfed nearly 3,000 acres of land so far, and the eruption has damaged or destroyed nearly 2,700 buildings, forcing the evacuation of thousands from their homes on the island. The volcano has been active since it first erupted on September 19th, and experts say it shows no sign of subsiding. And coming up, a lantern festival is returning for its 13th year in Seoul, South Korea. The beautiful lanterns are free to visit and attract people both online and offline. That and more in just a moment here on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but millions of you out there. Before all this started, I had already written in my memoir, I dedicate this book to anyone that's looking for hope. Well, right now, we're all looking for hope. I believe that my story is going to bring inspiration and hope to everyone. By the time you're done reading my book, you will believe that with God, all things are possible. To thank you all for your support, I'm offering some of my best prices ever on MyPillow products, including this exclusive bundle. You get my book and these 5 MyPillows. They all have beautiful scenes and verses from the Bible, such as Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. This 6-pack bundle is regularly $219. Now it's just $99.98 and free shipping with your promo code. Go to mypillow.com and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below. Thank you and God bless.
Amid the electric car frenzy, BMW has announced its new vehicle, a hybrid. The BMW XM uses both a gas and electric engine. NTD's Faye Corder spoke to two battery experts to get their thoughts.
BMW has unveiled its new car. The BMW XM. The vehicle has 750 horsepower and 737 foot-pounds of torque, all on a hybrid engine.
It's a step in the right direction, right? But at the end of the day, you still have two engines. You're still incurring that maintenance. Overall, it's a more expensive vehicle to make. But it's a step in the right direction, right? One by one, the holdouts are falling and people are going electric, and you have to.
Trent Mell is the CEO of Electra Battery Materials. Mell sees a furious level of activity in boardrooms to onshore the EV supply chain to America in preparation for a full EV future.
We've seen a number of high-profile announcements on assembly plants and on battery plants, but there's everything else, right? You got to get the material out of the ground, you got to process it, refine it, you got to produce it into a cathode active material, and so there is a bit of a race to get your hands on that raw material.
Rahul Harkawat is the founder of Quantum Copper. Harkawat also sees the push to go full electric.
I'm not sure if the hybrid is, a step to a full electric car. Or are they testing the waters? And with the hybrid solution, it's a little bit confusing for me to see.
BMW previously said it wants at least half of its cars to be all electric by 2030. Faye Corder, NTD News.
For 2 years, people have overcome the hardships presented by COVID-19. And now here's a message from the Seoul Lantern Festival in Korea at the heart of the city Seoul.
The Seoul Lantern Festival is having its 13th annual display this year in South Korea. The festival now has a vibrant display of traditional Korean lanterns in Cheonggi Falls.
If you visit Seoul, you can see this beautiful lantern. These lanterns are made with hanji, not silk.
Hanji, which is Korean handmade paper, gives the lanterns their distinct appearance. The paper has multi-directional grain, which is used in the two gold prize winners' Heart Cross on the left and Moon Halo on the right. Among these 83 Hanji lanterns, crowds have been adoring slow trees. The lantern represents the theme of this year's Seoul Lantern Festival, Forest of Healing, the Colors of Seoul.
The theme is going to be different from the previous visit, so I think I made a good decision to revisit here again.
I felt recharged after I saw these crowds. I feel like the pandemic is going to be over.
I feel good that I went outdoors, which I couldn't do for a while, and my kids like it too. It's pretty.
The festival originally was only for traditional lanterns, but allowed for LED lanterns in 2015. Guests come from around the world to see the display. Attendees are required to wear masks for the event.
Here is an outdoor event and not an indoor event, and even we all wear masks, so I feel safe from the COVID exposure.
The festival offers free entry to anyone at night between 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. until December 5th. This year, the Lantern Festival is also offering tours online using augmented reality.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selected videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.